We spent the last 3 months going around Singapore and Tokyo to try the best ramen, and now it's time to bring it all back to the kitchen in the last episode of the best ramen in Singapore. We are going to try to make arguably the most straightforward version of ramen, the tonkotsu ramen. The ingredients are relatively cheap, and all you need are just 4 short days. We start with the tare, which is basically infused soy sauce. We begin with the best soy sauce that we can find. How do we tell if a soy sauce is of good quality? Usually, the price is a good indicator, but other than that, the best soy sauces usually have the shortest ingredients list. Because in reality, there is no such thing as top quality soy sauce. The basic product of soybean fermentation is already the most ideal product. Companies then add stuff to it in order to create price differentiation so as to improve sales. Anyway, while I was ranting on that, you might have noticed that I also added mirin, kombu, ginger, and bonito flakes. If you wanted a recipe, I'm sorry, but this secret recipe is such a secret, even I don't know how much I added. We bring the tare up to 83 degrees Celsius and hold it there for about 10 minutes. We do this to wake the flavors up a bit, but important to note that we don't want to boil it, as that removes the alcoholic flavor compounds in the soy sauce. Let it come down to room temperature and store it for later. Next, the ramen eggs. Average size eggs, about 40 to 50 grams. 6 minute 20 for room temperature eggs, 7 minutes for refrigerated eggs. Boil them and peel them. I find that peeling under a slow stream of water works the best for me. And then marinate them in a combination of the tare and water. The marinade should taste about 70 to 80% of your intended saltiness. Add more soy sauce if you have to. Don't use all of the tare because we will need it for our ramen later. Store both the eggs and the tare in the fridge and we are done for the day. Nothing to do for this day. I like to buy my ingredients here and get set up for the next day. Because today, we are cooking. We are first going to place all of our pork bones into a big pot. We want bones with some cartilage and connective tissues on it because that will break down and give the signature tonkotsu flavor and texture. Tonkotsu restaurants use pig heads, but I'm going with regular pork bones, chicken feet, and 1 pork front trotter. Fill it up with water and leave it to soak for 2 hours. This will draw out the hemoglobin in the bones and reduce the porky stench. While that is sitting in the sink, we are going to get started with the char siu. There is a little bit of prestige surrounding the ramen char siu, but really, it's just red braised meat. And 卤肉嘛，谁不会? The best thing about loba is that it's very forgiving. Granted, it's really hard to make the perfect loba, but it's damn near impossible to make a bad one. I'm seasoning my char siu with some salt and 5-spice powder. Probably not traditional to have 5-spice, but I grew up with it. It ain't braised meat to me without 5-spice. And then simply get some butcher's twine and tie a few knots. There is a right way to tie the meat up, but I'm pretty bad at it. I mean, all my friends have tied the knot, except me. Then we are going to sear the surface of the char siu to give it a bit more rigidity and flavor. Top the pot with water and start creating our braising liquid. Again, it's a very secret recipe, unfortunately. The most important part is that the braise should be about 90% of your intended salt level this time, because it's a super thick piece of meat. You also have to balance this with any glaze you might have later. You might have also noticed that I added kombu and bonito flakes into the braise. Why, you ask? Because I need to clear these ingredients and not leave it in the cupboard until it spoils. Cook the char siu for roughly an hour, no more than that, and then we are going to leave it in the pot stovetop overnight. This allows more time for the meat to absorb the braise. Most recipes will call for you to transfer it and store it in the fridge. Why leh? You like to do more dishes, is it? And if you have to ask, Alderic, won't it spoil? Damn, son. You must have been living good to not need to eat stovetop leftovers before, huh? Actually, Alderic, both my parents died when I was young, so I never had anyone to cook for me nor teach me how to cook. Oh. Anyway, next we are going to make our noodles. Okay, my personal opinion, yes, homemade noodles are likely going to be better than your average store-bought ones, but are they worth the trouble? Probably not. Most of you are not going to have a noodle making machine, so you're going to have to buy it and probably use it once, and then the next time you see it will be when you spring clean or move. I would much rather you guys spend the extra effort on improving the broth or the char siu. That said, I'm going to make my own because I owe it to all the ramens I've eaten to make proper ramen at least once. We are doing a high 40% hydration noodles today. We start by toasting some baking soda on a dry pan to make kansui. This basically turns the environment alkaline, so that the noodles have a more Q texture to them. You want to reduce the weight of the baking soda by 1/3. Or so it said in the recipe. I just kinda winged it. What you cannot wing, however, are the ingredient amounts in the next part. 40% hydration noodles means whatever weight of flour you're going with, you add 40% of that weight of water. Today, we are doing a 500 grams batch of bread flour, so that means 200 grams of water. Very good. We are also adding 1% or 5 grams of the kansui we prepared, and also 1% or 5 grams of salt. This will yield roughly 6 to 7 packets of instant noodles worth of noodles. We then dissolve the kansui in the water, and this next part is very important. We are going to add the kansui solution very slowly into the flour. We set our stand mixer on the lowest setting and drip the water in almost like tears. You remember that time when you told yourself repeatedly that you were not going to cry? But as you look down towards your lap, your vision blurs and clears as tears drip from your eyes? Yes, something like that. The end product you are looking for is something really crumbly like this. And then we are going to keep pressing the dough until it comes together. This might take some time. Guys, how much is a bowl of Brothers Ramen again? After that, we're going to put the dough in a Ziploc bag, put on some socks, and stomp them until they sort of resemble a sheet. Let them rest in the refrigerator for 2 hours, cut them, and then run them through the noodle making machine. Rolling repeatedly and then once again, folding the sheet onto itself, also known as laminating. This aligns the gluten and gives the noodles a better texture. Once the sheet is of your desired thickness, run them through the cutter, and yatta! We have ramen noodles. Dust them with some cornstarch so that they don't stick to each other, and store them for tomorrow. Oh, we are also going to make some thicker noodles while we are at this. Why? It's a surprise tool that will help us later. And then finally, we can start on the broth. After 2 hours, the liquid should be pinkish like this. Drain that away and fill the pot up with fresh water. Bring the pot up to a boil and repeatedly skim away any scum that floats to the surface. Depending on the type of bones that you're using, this can take quite a while. After the broth runs relatively clean, we can start the cooking process. Normally, ramen restaurants let this run at medium heat for 24 to 48 hours. But unfortunately, the PUB bill is still a very real thing in my world. So, we're gonna bust out the good old pressure cooker and let it go for at least 2 hours. There are very few things in the cooking world that you will want to pressure cook for 2 or more hours. The ones that I can think of are bone broths, maybe your feelings, that's it. Oh, bofa! Bofa would probably be quite good pressure cook. Because pressure cooking for such a long time is absolutely going to destroy any texture of your ingredients, which is what we want for a tonkatsu. After 2 to 3 hours, take the heat off and once again leave it on the stove top for tomorrow. The next day, when you pop open the pressure cooker, you'll notice that the broth is not quite there yet. Pressure cooking is great for speeding up the cooking process, but it doesn't physically agitate the broth. Pressure is kept in, very little steam is allowed to escape, which means internally there's little to no convection currents. That simply means things aren't knocked around in the liquid. So today, we're going to boil the broth for another 2 hours, lid off, simultaneously crushing the bones inside with the tool of our choice. Ramen restaurants usually have a really heavy wooden paddle for this, but for the home kitchen, a rolling pin or a ladle should suffice. Meanwhile, we are also going to render down some jiu, or chicken fat. You will only be able to find this from the butcher shops in the wet market. But the good news is that it's usually very cheap, or even free. I got to the wet market in the late morning and the store owner just gave it to me. An alternative will be to find some chicken skins and cook that down to get the rendered chicken fat. Store that in a container for later. We also need to warm our char siu back up, and then we're going to take some of the braising liquid and combine it with some dark soya sauce. Reduce that down to get our glaze for the char siu. You just need it to be a bit thicker so that it latches on the char siu. You can check the consistency by wiping the pan with a spatula and seeing how fast it comes back together. It will thicken up even more after it cools, so keep that in mind. Cut up the butcher's twine of the char siu and slice nice generous pieces. Brush the pieces of char siu with the glaze and torch them to your desired level. And then the char siu is done. Final steps. Sieve out our tonkatsu broth, portion some of that out and boil our homemade noodles in them. Set up some seaweed, tare, and chiyu in a bowl and transfer the noodles and broth in. Top with ramen egg, char siu, and spring onions, and then we are done. Simple, isn't it? Just needed 4 short days. And it was great, or at least my family enjoyed it. But we still gotta give it a proper rating, don't we? This had 0 character. Possibly the most passerby tonkatsu I have ever had. This feels like it was made in a home economics class for teenagers. But the bigger miss is the starch. I got a little too insecure about the noodles sticking to each other and went too heavy on the dusting flour. Not only that, I cooked the noodles in the tonkatsu broth, which made the starch act like a thickening agent. Make sure to cook your noodles in an excess amount of water and change the water once it gets cloudy. You guys have gotten really good at guessing my ratings, so I think you'll see this one coming. Alderic gets 1 plate. I can't see myself leaving the house for this. And that's all I have for you guys this time. Comment below what you guys would like to see for the next series. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye! Wait. But Alderic, that is a tsukemen in the thumbnail, right? Yeah, because I miss fungi so much. I tried to do a tsukemen by combining the tonkatsu broth with the residual meat from the pressure cooker. Any soft bones, fat, or meat, I scooped them into a blender and blended it with the tonkatsu broth to make it thicker. I then seasoned it with more tare and this bottle of ponzu sauce. Lastly, I boiled the thicker noodles we made earlier and plunged them into an ice cold bath. Played it with some char siu and spring onions, and the result was horrendous. The broth is so porky. It is literally a pork shake with absolutely no balance nor harmony. One day I'll learn how to make a tsukemen, but it is not this day. Bye for real now.